And I want to welcome everyone to So You Want to Start a Nonprofit. We have one of our own SCORE Boston mentors, Ramesh Advani, is going to do our presentation today. And we have a special guest from CWE, Raquel Knight, and going to share some information on CWE, just a short little bit of information that you might find useful. So we're happy to have them here with us today. And I just want to go ahead. Oh, sorry about that. 1 second. So I want to talk about SCORE real quick. SCORE does two main things. One is training through webinars and workshops. We do have a handful of in-person workshops that we have going. I do encourage you to check out the newsletter or the website for the upcoming presentations we have, and we're constantly adding new topics and definitely reviewing those basics as well. So definitely encourage you to take a look at that information. The most important thing that SCORE does is the mentoring, and mentoring is always free and it is confidential. Our mentors are volunteers and they come to us with different experiences and backgrounds and knowledge to share with small business owners. Who do we work with? We work with those that are in those beginning phases and they're trying to decide if starting a small business is for them. We're talking to those that are in that planning phase, and we're talking to those that are already in business. Maybe they're ready for growth, or perhaps they're struggling with marketing or any other topic in the business realm. We have mentors that can work with you and help you move forward. A beginning session is going to be a get to know you phase. They want to find out, our mentors want to find out what your goals are, what your challenges are, and help put together a plan to get you to where you need to go. Getting a mentor is super easy. You can go to the score.org website. There's a zip code block there. You can put your zip code in and it will send your request to the chapter nearest you. You can also visit any of the websites here for the chapters in our district. I can put those in chat here shortly. Or you can email me or put a note in chat, and I'll put all that information into the chat so that you have that with you today. We do have a decent number of people on our call today, so we are going to be using that Q&A tab so I don't lose track of those questions. So if you have a question you would like to ask to either of our presenters today, please put it into Q&A, and that will make sure that question gets out there to them. Everything else can absolutely go into chat. That's not a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Raquel, and you can tell us about CWE.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Raquel Knight, and I'm the Director for the Central Mass Women Business Center at Center for Women and Enterprise. Center for Women and Enterprise help women, even though we're exclusive to everyone. So if you're looking to start your business, grow your business, or even exiting your business, we provide resources that can help you at each stage. So these resources include workshops, trainings, one-on-one consultations, and certification as well, if you're interested in that. CWE hosts 5 women business centers across New England, 2 in Massachusetts, so Central and Eastern, 1 in Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Vermont. We also host the VBOC, which is the Veteran Business Outreach Center, and also we bank our certification for New England. Our office is located in Westboro right now, but we travel all the way out. Not travel, we service clients all the way out to Western Mass. So our office catered to Western and Central Mass client. Workshops. So we also offer our 10-week business plan class in English and Spanish. So a lot of our workshops and trainings are being translated into different languages. So if you're looking for us to get some trainings or get some of our resources in a certain language, please reach out to us. What else do we do? We also host our 13-week Power Forward class, and that helps you to start, if you're looking to start a strategic plan. And if your business is eligible, you will get a chance to become certified free of cost as well through that program. Right now, we have a few events. It's really great to be collaborating with our partners at SCORE. We're all working with the SBA, so it's always a pleasure to collaborate and partner with y'all. Even though we do consultation, we're always willing to send our clients over to you guys for mentorship. I'm hoping that we can continue to collaborate in this way to help our clients who are looking to start, grow, and exit their businesses. So if you need more information on CWE, I will put our email in the chat, and you can reach out to us at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel. That was fantastic information. Definitely put that information in the chat for us. Okay, Ramesh, it's your turn.
Thank you. Thanks, Teresa. And thank you, Raquel. It's very kind of you to join this, and welcome everybody. Good afternoon. I am going to talk, this particular webinar we do as our first introductory webinar for anyone who is interested in starting a nonprofit. So most of the information I'm going to share may appear to be fairly elementary, but you will probably have questions as I go through it. And certainly after the webinar, if you want to talk more, we have a nonprofit practice group in the Boston chapter, and we meet with clients on Zoom. So no matter where you're located, we'd be happy to meet with you. My colleagues are also very well equipped with their background and experience. And if you just want to go on our website, you would be able to just enter it. And Teresa, who's our coordinator for for this webinar, is also our intake manager. And so I will go through this. I will pause after each slide or a group of slides so that if there are questions you put in the chat, Teresa will give them to me and I will answer them. So no question is a bad question. Anything that you want to ask, please ask, because I'm sure there'll be somebody else who probably been thinking, oh yeah, I have that question too. So I'm going to get started. We've just gone through all the introductions. My background as a SCORE mentor is I've been in the private sector. I was in there for many years, and then I landed up working for the state, for the governor of Massachusetts. And while I worked there, I got exposed very significantly to the nonprofit world and nonprofit boards. And I realized that was actually my introduction to SCORE. I decided that when I retire from there, I am going to devote my energies to the nonprofit world. So I'm quite active and engaged with the nonprofit sector, which is very large in Massachusetts, given the size of our state. I'm going to go through and tell you what may be obvious. What is a nonprofit? How is it different? And how is it the same as a for-profit? What are some of the musts that you must keep in mind as you're thinking about this nonprofit? And I'm going to talk a little bit about some key roles, the founder, the board, the staff, and of course this dirty word. It's not very dirty at all, money, because without money, you really can't do anything in a for-profit or a nonprofit. We call it fundraising in the nonprofit world. I'm going to talk a little bit about the competition and collaboration, because there are lots of nonprofits and you might have a great idea, It's possible that it's a variation on somebody else's idea, or other people are offering the same services, but you're focused on a particular community that is not getting the benefit of the work of the other nonprofits. So a little bit about the competition and collaboration. In Massachusetts alone, there are over 8,300 nonprofits across many different sectors. And then I'll just end with something which I think is very important, no matter what you're trying to do as an entrepreneur, but in particular, examining your own strengths and gaps, and then the next steps. So let's get started. An NPO, as it's, jargon, everybody likes jargon, is a non-business entity. It's a not-for-profit organization or a nonprofit institution. That entity is a legal entity which is organized and operated for a collective public or social benefit. Lots of big words. The basic point is that a nonprofit is subject to what the government and the IRS will call non-distribution constraint. What does that mean? When you get money coming into the organization, which is a revenue, and your revenues exceed the expenses, every organization has expenses, all that excess revenue must be committed to the organization's purpose and for the growth of the organization, and it cannot be taken by any private parties. In other words, there are no shareholders, and there might be people who are founders or involved as staff. They can certainly, we'll talk about that, they can get salaries, but the profits or the excess over expenses has to be reinvested in the nonprofit's mission and to serve the purpose of nonprofits. It's pretty straightforward. Can't go into anybody's pocket.
Ramesh, are you showing slides? Because I'm not seeing them on the screen. Are you?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't see my slides?
No, they must have not shared. Did you hit the share screen button and then hit the pop-up hit share maybe?
Oh, okay, sorry,
That's okay.
hold on a second, I apologize. One second. Can you see my screen?
No, I can't. We're not seeing it.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
okay.
Hold on.
No problem. Now we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize. One second. I'm trying to go to the slideshow. Just by the way, for everybody's benefit, you'll certainly get all the slides. So if you were trying to frantically take notes, don't worry about it. You'll get all of them. Okay. So I was talking about what is a nonprofit and how is it defined. So I think it's important to know there are some similarities with a for-profit. I'll go through the differences, which we already have talked about. A for-profit entity is one that operates as a business aiming to generate a profit for its entity, for its owners. A for-profit entity, before it can distribute the profits to its owners, they have to pay taxes. And then they can redistribute profit to the owners, or they can also reinvest it to grow the business. Profits from a for-profit company, it's called a dividend. But a nonprofit pays no taxes. Whatever excess revenues, as I said, that it has over its expenses, it has to reinvest back in the business. No one owns a nonprofit. So even if you're interested in starting a nonprofit, remember you don't own it. The other thing that a nonprofit can do, which a for-profit cannot do, is to raise public funds. In other words, get grants, get charity funds, go to a foundation, and the foundation will give them money. So because a nonprofit can raise public funds, they're expected to be accountable and very transparent in the use of all their funds. So a nonprofit gets money coming in from the activities that it does, and it also gets money from grants and from public. All money that comes into a nonprofit has to be very properly accounted for and very transparent in the bookkeeping. Now, what's same as for a for-profit and a nonprofit? Both types of organization must make enough money to accomplish their mission and make enough money to stay in business. So how does an organization accomplish its mission? They have to be able to meet all their expenses for their staff and anybody who's employed by the organization, but they also need to make more money than what's needed to meet the day-to-day business. And it's that money, making more money that's coming in, gets reinvested back in the nonprofit. The other thing that is similar for a nonprofit and a for-profit is there is competition. There could be other organizations. I made a reference to this a little earlier when I was going through the agenda. Other nonprofits could be serving same population as you're planning to serve or similar populations. So competition is not just something for the for-profit world. Any questions on this slide?
No, we have no questions so far.
Great, thank you. So I'll go on to the next one. What are some of the musts for a nonprofit organization? As I just said earlier, reiterated, you have to be transparent and you have to meet all the state and federal requirements of reporting your activities and your money and funds, and you have to file these returns. When you file your tax returns, they're called individual tax returns or 1040s. Well, the IRS requires a nonprofit also to file a tax return. They're not paying taxes, but they have to declare and report all of the money that's coming in and the money that's being spent. That's called, just like when you file your regular tax return, it's called a 1040. A nonprofit files something called a 990, and all 990s are public documents, and you can actually look at the 990 of any nonprofit right on the internet. The second must is you have to have a well-documented set of articles of organization and bylaws. So those are rules that you put in place. And so, for example, if you're going to form a nonprofit and you say you came for some mentoring to SCORE, we have templates that show you what these bylaws should say, how they should be written, and the articles of organization. And when you have those written up, you will actually file that in Massachusetts, for example, or even say in Rhode Island, with the Secretary of State of that state. So you would file it in the Commonwealth once you put those together. And it's the bylaws and the articles of organization that govern the behavior and actions of the board of directors of the nonprofit and of the staff. The third must is public reporting of the salaries of the officers and highly compensated employees. So that's a very vague term, but it's a function of the size of the nonprofit. What is a highly compensated employee? Who is a highly compensated employee? What are the salaries? But just be aware that that is reported. And where does that get reported? That gets reported on that 990 I was just talking about, because that gets published. So when you have a nonprofit with like the CEO or what we call the executive director of the nonprofit, it's very transparent what that person is getting paid by way of a direct salary, as well as any benefits that are paid for by the organization. In a for-profit organization, that information is not public, but for a nonprofit, that's all public. And the last requirement is you have to have a board of directors. And the board of directors, there are a certain minimum number of directors that you need. They have to be competent. In other words, they've got to have the skills to be doing the work of the nonprofit, because they are responsible for the governance and oversight of the operations. They're accountable. So when we say you have to report things to the federal government, as well as to the state government and to the public, the accountability is with every board member, every director. And to be on a board of a nonprofit, there have to be no financial incentives. They're doing their job because they believe in the mission of the nonprofit, and out of the goodness of, the social good that they have, they want to give back to the community. Any questions on the musts?
Yeah. Is there a place where you can look up a nonprofit and find out what population they serve or what their mission is? Do you know?
Yes. So there is a website. It's not just a website, but just like you have, Dow Jones and various things in the financial world, there is something called GuideStar, all one word, GUIDESTAR. And there are sections of the GuideStar which are available to the public. Anyone can go in and just enter in the search the name of an organization or a sector or whatever, or even the state, and you will get the links and you can go in and you can read about that organization, about who they serve. You can also look up the 990 that they have filed and are officially available publicly.
Okay. So you had mentioned about a nonprofit not being able to have a profit. So it is true that they have to spend down their money that they raise each year?
That's a very good question. They don't have to spend down all their money. They actually, from a business standpoint, if somebody came to me and they were doing a nonprofit with a business plan, they should make more money that they then save up and reinvest in expanding the mission of the organization. So for example, they might expand the population they're serving. They might, as they become more complex, they might need to have more employees. So in 1 year's budget, they might only have, say, 5 employees, but next year they want to have 2 more. They need extra money, and you need to have the money, with you before you can hire those people. So no, you don't have to spend it down. It just sits there in your bank account.
Do you always need a board of directors if you're just getting started?
You always need a board of directors, yes. And so if there's a founder, generally, so I'll get into a little bit more the detail. You have to identify a minimum number of people who really believe in that mission, because these people are going to help you. No man is an island. You can't do it all by yourself. You need people's help, and time is the most valuable thing you can get people to commit to.
Well, we have a couple more questions, but why don't we hold those and go ahead and keep going?
Okay, these are great questions. Okay, so 4 must, easy to understand. And so let me just get into a little bit. There was a question about this. What is an organization? In the organization, you need a board of directors. At a very minimum, you need a chair of the board of directors. So there are people who say, that's too much time, and they might have two co-chairs. You need a treasurer, somebody who understands not just the mission, but understands numbers, knows how to keep the books, etc., and what do the books say. And you need a secretary or a clerk of the board, because every board meeting has to be documented with the minutes and kept track of. So you need a secretary. At a minimum, you need 3 board positions. Now, I generally tell people when they're doing their bylaws, they first do a bylaw, so do the bylaws that describe not just what a founder needs at the start, but so that you don't have to revise bylaws, each time, because to change the bylaws, you need a board meeting, have everybody vote on it, and so it's more complicated. So it's better to define a board, let's say, and always have odd number of board members, so there are no voting problems. So either start with 7 or 9 or 11, and as the organization grows, you could have 15 or 17. So you could have board positions that just say board member, and you don't fill them. But I would say at the very start, I personally, when I counsel anybody, I say at least have 5 people on the board. Besides these 3, the other 2 should be people who really care about the mission and are connected in the community and are able to help with the fundraising, bring money to the board. There's a very cute little 3-letter word thing that you should all keep in mind, the 3 W's to be on a board of a nonprofit. What are the 3 W's? Anybody who wants to be a board member should at least qualify with 2 of the W's. One is work. They're willing to roll up their sleeves. It's a new nonprofit. They're willing to do the work. The second is wisdom. And wisdom is they understand what it takes to serve that community or provide that mission, or understand how it's done by a nonprofit that is doing that work. So work, wisdom, and the third is wealth. And by wealth, it means they're willing to put in their own money or have a network of people who are willing to donate and provide that. So when you are looking, let's say you are a founder and you started off and you're the chair, and you're looking, try to find people who are able to bring funding to your nonprofit. They don't have to have deep pockets themselves, but if they do, that's very good. Because no matter what is the size of the nonprofit, or you've been in business for many, many years, I'll give you an example. For example, a nonprofit like the Boston Symphony has existed for decades. But just from the performances of the Boston Symphony, they are not able to cover all the expenses. Everybody who is a nonprofit world, they have to have money coming in through grants and donations. It's a given. So always make sure you have money coming in, and the board members are the ones who will help make that happen. The second set of key positions is the executive management, who are compensated. At the very start, you'll have to have an executive director who is the CEO, who's compensated. That's probably the highest paid employee. And of course, eventually you'll have a CFO and, other positions, may have a development officer, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have staff, and staff are also compensated. Operations staff, you have people who are going to do IT, people who are going to do marketing, finance, fundraising. Now, I put a footnote here and say, okay, I'm starting up a nonprofit, so I'm going to also be the board chair because I'm going to help get everything going. But I really, can't afford right away to have an separate executive director, and the executive director has to be compensated. So you might play a joint role of a board member and the executive director. However, in order to get paid, you're getting paid in the role of an executive director, not as a board member, because if you remember in the previous slide, I said the board members are doing everything pro bono. They cannot be compensated. And how do you safeguard that? You put financial safeguards in the articles of organization that describe that if there is an executive director who's also the chair of the board of directors, that this is what they are going to get paid, blah, blah, blah. And you spell it out there. So it's very public and it's very specific. And let's say you are the chair, you started this thing, you're also the executive director, and you want to get paid more 2 years down the road, when 2 years have gone by, and you can't just increase your own pay as the executive compensation. It has to be voted on a formal basis at a board meeting. And if the board of directors agree, then you could get that increase. So I'll pause here. Any questions on the key roles in a nonprofit?
We're going to save the questions that we have for later, because I think you might be covering some of these things. So.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to go to the next one. Okay, this is probably the most important thing, money. Clearly, you have to generate enough money so that you can cover all your costs annually. And second, also to meet the mission and stay in business. So as I was just saying, the services that you provide may not cover all your costs. I mean, the revenues that you get from your services may not cover all your costs, because you're, as a nonprofit, trying to serve a community that may not get those services, maybe underserved communities. So you can't be charging all kinds of money. You're just getting paid to cover as much as you can, and possibly even less than how much it costs you to provide the services. So that's why you have to do fundraising. And fundraising can come from individual donors, or it could come from grants, from private foundations, also from public organizations, come from your city. It could come from the federal government. It could come from, it could come from your church. I mean, there are many, many sources of fundraising. In Massachusetts, there is an organization called the Massachusetts Nonprofit Network. If you start a nonprofit, I would recommend become a member over there, have your organization be a member, and then you would be able to see a lot of resources that are available for free, and then find out about sources of grant funds, etc. We actually, subsequent to this webinar, SCORE also offers, we'll do a webinar, I think in about a week or 10 days, that gives you very specific coaching on where you can find grants and how do you go about getting grants. It's very important that you don't get into one of those one and done relationship with a donor. If you can get people who can give you repeat donations, or for example, a foundation, say like the Bar Foundation, you apply to them and you qualify and they offer you a grant. There are many organizations and foundations that will donate multi-year, give you a 3-year grant, give you money. When they announce the grant and you get it, they'll say you'll get this in year 1, this in year 2, this in year 3. Those are just absolutely divine things to get, because it's very important that they believe in what you're doing. And the last point to make is, when you're asking people for money, donors, it's important that you do very good, timely communications with them, and that they see the results. Not only do they have to know your goals, but then you tell them how you're performing, what are the outcomes as a result of your work. So if it's one thing to know the mission, but okay, how are they doing? What have they done? So for example, there's a lot of hunger in our society. And so, for example, an organization that addresses hunger is the Greater Boston Food Bank. And they get big donations from everywhere, because they actually make it very public on their website and in fundraising events, how many people they serve, how much money they raise, and the people who are benefiting, etc. From that. So that's just an example. I cannot overemphasize by any means how important funding and money is, because even if you are willing to put up some money out of your own pocket, and you should, and oh, by the way, board directors, it's very important when you go to a donor or to a foundation or grant making organization, one of the things they always ask in an application is what percentage of your board members donate. And it's very important to come across like the board really cares about the mission. It's better to have 100% of the board making a donation. They don't necessarily all have to make thousands of dollars. Even if they, a board member gives $100 a year, that's good enough. You get the checkbox that that board member made a donation. So money is very significant, because you don't want to lose sleep, or you don't want to, 2 years down the road, you're doing good work, but unfortunately, there's not enough money to cover all the costs. So, competition and collaboration. You need to be very aware of who else is in the space you're operating. I hate to say this, but we've all humans have been in existence now for so long. You're not about to by forming a nonprofit, you're not about to create a brand new digital watch that also can take pictures, or an iPhone or whatever. In the world of creativity and innovation in the nonprofit sector, a lot has been done before and continues to get done. But there's never enough anyone can do to help their fellow human beings. So just because I've said be aware of who else is there to operate, you shouldn't be deterred. If you're really committed to forming a nonprofit, you should go ahead. And as you examine what these other nonprofits, maybe we were in the same space, you should learn from them. Maybe even before you start your own, if you want to go work for them, learn how they do it and see what you can do better. The other thing you can do is you say, okay, I want to start a nonprofit. but you should be willing to collaborate and cooperate. So they may not have, thought of the community that you're going to serve, or they may not, or you may not have all the resources. They have some resources that you could share with them, and maybe help even pay for the services that you're using from them before you go ahead and get your own. And never hesitate to look for what synergies there are between your organization that you're trying to form and another organization that might benefit the clients, your clients. And much better to collaborate than to think of this as competition. So actually, that's the heart of what I have presented. Now for the most important slide in my presentation, and that is, it's important that you know your own strengths and the gaps. And what are some of these questions that you should ask yourself before you start to actually say, I'm going to identify who could be on my board, or what my articles of organization will be, and I want to register with the state and with the IRS and all that. The first question is, are your personal circumstances such that you can spend the time and energy and to stick with the work and the mission of the nonprofit right till it becomes an established nonprofit in the area? If your circumstances change and you have to back away or reduce your role, and till the organization is strong enough to survive without you, that would not be a good thing. So just examine. These are questions that nobody else can ask you, only you can ask yourself. Then you should find out and do like a little inventory of what is it that you're good at. You might be very good at communications, or you might be very good at operations. You might be terrible when it comes to numbers or even balancing your checkbook. So just do a plus and minus sort of an inventory of what are you good at, and who else do you know who would be interested in actively getting involved in the same cause. More important than knowing what you're good at is do an inventory. What are you not good at? And why is it important to know what you're not good at? Be honest, because what you need is to fill that gap and recruit resources and skills to make up for that. And those resources and skills could be in a board member who's willing to do it, pro bono, or it could be in staff. So fundraising, you may not be very good at fundraising. You may not like to ask people for money. There might be somebody else who you could get from the marketplace who would have those skills. So it's good you have to know what you're not good at, because you'll have to spend your energies while you're starting up the nonprofit to recruit those kinds of people. And to do that, you have to make sure you're the only one who can figure out how you find the people and the funding resources to help you do the things that you're not good at. The next one, whether you're a for-profit or a not-for-profit, it's one thing to get started and to work day and night to get it going as an entrepreneur, but eventually, whether you're the executive director or the chair of the board and somebody else, you have to have the capabilities of being a coach. That's not a skill that you cannot be not good at. You have to be capable of motivating and leading a team, because that's how the work is going to get done. You have to be capable of being the coach. Now, once the organization has gotten going, you have to be willing to let go. You have to be willing to delegate work that you were doing just by yourself You need to be able to give it to the staff, to the executive director, or to other board members. And when anybody is doing something for the first time, they'll make mistakes. So make sure you have, you've got the guards to prevent the mistakes from causing some very significant problems. But you have to be able to trust them and allow them to make the mistakes and then step in to help solve the mistakes. The one thing that you cannot allow for is for any kind of fraud, because many nonprofits, financially, they are unsuccessful because they are subject to fraud, and that fraud happens from inside the organization, not from outside, and it's very, very unfortunate. And so you have to be very careful and cautious about that. So do a little check of your strengths and gaps as you're getting going, and some of these questions, be thinking about them. And of course, if you got together with a SCORE mentor, he or she will also tell you, well, let's do an inventory of yourself, your own strengths and gaps, and we'll make suggestions. This may be good for now, but you need to get somebody else to get engaged. So what are some of the next steps? Of course, I'll take all the questions that you guys have, but I would say in an organized manner, gather your thoughts, write out your responses to what you learned today, and then, as I said, we're going to have a workshop on grants and how to get grants. Check out the boston.score.org website, and you can sign up. And we're located at the Tip O'Neill building in Boston, but we are doing all our mentoring by Zoom. We have just started some in-person mentoring, but most people prefer, they don't have to come into Boston. They want to do it on Zoom, and just ask for a meeting with one of the members of the nonprofit practice group, and then, take it from there. And that's all what I have.
Well, I have lots of questions. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. If you want to look up the 990 of a local nonprofit, where can you find that?
On GuideStar.
On GuideStar. Okay. Are there instances, or why are some CEO salaries not reported on a 990? Is it because they're too small?
Yes. But something doesn't sound right with that either. The CEOs have got to be highly compensated, and somebody might say the total cost of the organization is, I'm making it up, let's say it's $200,000. Surely, even for $200,000 annual expenses for an organization, the CEO must be getting paid $40,000-$50,000. So I don't know. It's unusual. You should be able to find the compensation for the CEO.
What are some best practices to do when you are a fiscally sponsored organization, and critical steps to take transitioning to be a fully dependent organization in the future?
That's a very good question. So just so that others who may not understand, when you get started, because you have to be very careful about the accounting and the record keeping, a new nonprofit finds an already existing nonprofit that is a 501c3. What is a 501c3? It's just one of the codes of the federal government that allows you, and you get registered as a 501c3 nonprofit. Then you can go to people and get donations, and when they donate to you, they can deduct that donation on their tax return under charity. And so that whole process of registering with the IRS and filling out all the forms, which, by the way, there are lots of forms, to register as a 501c3, you may need to get started to get going on what you're doing. So what you do is you look for an already existing nonprofit, which is a 501c3, and ask them, hey, would you be my fiscal sponsor? And that's what fiscal sponsorship means. And what does this mean from the standpoint of the donor? So let's say you've got your articles of organization, you've got organized, you've registered the Secretary of State, and you want to get people involved, and they say, yeah, I want to donate. I'm going to donate $10,000. But what's your, 501c, your tax ID number? Well, we've applied for it, don't have it. Well, you don't have to do that. You could say, and the fiscal sponsor will let you use their 501c3 for the tax deduction. You tell the donor that's what it is, and the fiscal sponsor will be keeping your books. They will keep the money that you get till you get your own setup. They will keep that in their bank account, and on the accounting that they do, they will account for it through their accountant or CFO, whatever. So it's your money, not their money. I don't know if that answers the question that
Yeah,
the person.
if it doesn't, please go ahead and ask another question on top of that. I do have a related question. I think you kind of hit on some of the pros of having a fiscal sponsor. Are there any cons that someone should be aware of?
No, you just need to make sure they they understand that they understand what you're doing, and you're going to have some numbers sense, so that let's say you have to have an agreement with them that they give you the financials, monthly reports, and then you look at it and you ask them, and so for example, when you get checks or anything, when they get deposited, that they're deposited correctly, because you will still be able to set up your own bank account with your bank, and then the fiscal sponsor will make sure that money that comes in gets deposited in your bank account, not in their bank. I mean, you don't have to have it all worked out, but it could, if they do proper reporting, it could also go into their account. But generally, they will, you'll have already got your EIN number, which is the, just like the social, organizations have something called an EIN number, which is like the social security number that we all have. So when you open a bank account, you'll open it under the EIN of that nonprofit.
Can a board member also be a financial officer?
Actually, a board member. Oh, you mean? So when I say three important board positions, one is the treasurer. Technically, that treasurer is financially responsible for everything and is the financial officer. And I don't know if the questioner meant as a CFO, also be a board member treasurer as well as a CFO. That answer would be no. If you're going to do that, the treasurer should just continue doing everything, and you should probably just get some kind of a bookkeeper to do the bookkeeping. And eventually, when you get a CFO who is an officer, the board member who's a treasurer will be just signing off on things, co-signing things.
Can board members be related from the same family?
Sure.
Yep. We got that one twice. Okay, let me get that one out. Do you remember, I know we're going to talk about grants next time, but do you recommend paid services like Massachusetts Grant Watch?
I have not been involved with a nonprofit that uses them, but if you can afford it, sure, why not? Because not everybody knows how to write grants, and there are people who do grant writing, and yeah, you should definitely, if you have never written grants, applied for grants, you should get grant and then you can't afford to hire grant writers, they definitely use those kinds of services.
Can a board member donate non-cash, such as the use of a vehicle?
Yes, anyone can donate cash and non-cash. They can donate services, pro bono services. They can donate physical items. So for example, I am on the board of a nonprofit, which is a maker place in Boston called Artisans Asylum. And they have members who pay membership, but so they have studios there, they make stuff, and they are maybe in business for themselves. But the Maker Place Artisans Asylum is a nonprofit, and we need money and we need physical things, and they get donations all the time. Even non-cash donations have to be accounted for and tracked so that they get reported. The approximate market value assigned to them gets reported also on your 990, or at least it's reported, and it should be in your audited financials.
I've been told to earn a 503(e)(3) must go through an already established organization.
501c3.
503(e)(3).
Oh, 503. So I could not give you a straight answer on that because I hate to say this, even though I work with I'm not a tax expert. There are many different categories of 501 type, the C6, the E3, and all of that. It depends on, like the type of nonprofits. For example, hospitals are a nonprofit, education institutions, colleges are nonprofits, churches and religious organizations are nonprofits. So it all depends on which category the service is being provided in the sector, and accordingly you'll have to sort of look at that. And I would say, to get a proper answer, you can look up the IRS website, but the other place where you can look at is talk to a tax accountant, a CPA who does accounting and filings for a nonprofit. You can also, I would say, in the Massachusetts Nonprofit Network, see if they have any resource. These days you can, you can always go to Dr. Google, but check out so you can get the answer. I don't think the Secretary of State's office will be able to answer that. And, the IRS is so understaffed, you can't really call any number. You can see if it's there on their website. I'm sorry to give you this go here, go there type of an answer.
Okay. Can you start as an LLC and become a nonprofit later?
So a nonprofit is just a tax status, okay, which is governed by what goes on with the federal government, and the state governments just follow what the federal government does. When you register the nonprofit Secretary of State, it will be an LLC. An LLC does not have to be just a for-profit. That's a legal status, whereas the 501c3 and all is a financial tax status.
Okay. What is the difference between the treasurer and a CFO?
Well, technically, a chief financial officer is an officer, is a staff member. We just use the word treasurer in a nonprofit because that's a more generic term. Basically, when you form a nonprofit, the treasurer is the one who might be operating your bank account, writing the checks, signing contracts, et cetera, et cetera. And some of those functions, the day-to-day operational stuff, could belong to a CFO when you're large enough to have a CFO. But essentially, it's the same thing. The only thing is legally, a treasurer is a member of the board and is legally accountable, legally and fiscally accountable for that nonprofit.
Okay. Can a board member ever be paid for their time and services?
If that's been spelled out in the articles of organization, then yes. But normally board members have to be performing free of charge. And there are foundations and grants who, they might question, say, what are these people doing? They've got 3 brothers and a sister have formed a nonprofit, and 2 of them are just doing this so the money goes into their pocket as opposed to, furthering the mission. So, I mean, it's not clean, but if it has to be done, if you need it, then that it has to be documented right up front and all along.
Okay. I think this question is meant if you can have, I don't know. Can you have a nonprofit to help kids in a different country, or does it need to be in Massachusetts? And I'm guessing you mean to get help from a SCORE mentor. As long as you're in Massachusetts, you can, and you help other people in other countries, that's fine. We're happy to help you.
You can be a nonprofit
So
in
definitely,
Massachusetts. You can be a Massachusetts you can be a nonprofit in Massachusetts and have a mission that would be totally dedicated outside Massachusetts in another country. That's you can basically be an international nonprofit. For example, there are people who are nonprofits who just help people in Africa and South America and in Asia. So you can do it anywhere and still get be a 501c3.
Okay. We actually still have a huge list of questions, and these are kind of getting into some nitty-gritty type questions that are specific to different situations. So I'm going to say we're going to cut those off and cut off our questions for today. And I strongly encourage that you get a SCORE mentor. It doesn't cost you anything, and they can sit and go through what your situation is. We have more nonprofit mentors than just Ramesh. We have a handful of them, and they're all fantastic, and they can go through what your specific situation is and answer the question directly on how it relates to you. So, and honestly, the handful of mentors I mentioned are just in the Boston chapter, and there are other nonprofit mentors in other chapters as well. So we would be happy to help you and answer all your questions. Just reach out to us, please, and set up an appointment. You can email me at outreach@scoreboston.org, or you can go to the score.org website and put in your zip code and put that question in, and we can answer all those questions for you.
Yeah, Angela just asked, yes, SCORE board members can be from anywhere in the state, any state.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, Ramesh. Just a lot of information for sure. And I think that there's no doubt that I think everyone got something out of it. And let's continue that relationship by grabbing a SCORE mentor, and we can keep that relationship going and help you keep things moving forward in your nonprofit.
Yeah, thank you very much for attending. And I think if they want, can they get the slides if they want that, or?
Yeah, I have the recording if they absolutely want.
Recording.
Yeah. So all that information. So I gave that information already. So, okay.
Well,
All right.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.